Hello, hello, hello. My name is Karen Perkins. I am your number one encouragement agent and founder of Perfectly You with Karen Perkins. I believe every woman deserves to live your best life, and I help busy moms tap into the greatness that is inside of you so that you can let your greatness shine through. I am so excited to be with you today, and my topic is warning diva loading. And I don't know what comes to your mind when you first hear that word diva. Depending on your experiences or your circle of influence, diva could have a positive or a negative uh, view in your mind. You might think about your favorite recording artist when you hear diva, like Beyonce or Mariah Carey. Or you might think of someone that you know in your circle. For example, some pop artists, like ones I mentioned before, may, as they rise to the top, become a little bit more difficult to work with. And so they might be labeled as a diva in their industry. And that's not necessarily a good thing. But also, you might think about somebody in your circle. Maybe there's that one friend who's always on point with her hair, her nails, her fashion, all of that. And you might call her a diva or say she has divitude. In that sense, yeah, it would be a positive thing. But for today's topic, I'm doing a little play on words. DIVA is actually an acronym we're going to talk about because as busy moms, we do a lot of giving, a lot of serving, and all of that. But sometimes we do a little bit too much, give a little bit more than we should, and maybe even let people take advantage of us. And so the diva I'm talking about today might end up feeling depressed, insecure, vulnerable, or afraid. Sink that in for a moment. Depressed, insecure, vulnerable, afraid. And unfortunately, I am far too familiar with all four of those feelings. So, like I said, a diva could be positive or negative in your mind. But for today's talk about warning, diva loading, we're talking about the person that seems to put other people's thoughts, feelings, problems, etc. It's ahead of their own to a fault. And if you're constantly pushing, 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 doing other people's things without being personally fulfilled, without taking time to tend to yourself, then you could end up being depressed, insecure, vulnerable, and afraid, just to name a few. Now, don't let that get you down. We're going to talk a little bit, just have a little chat, answer a few questions about this diva, and then talk about what we can do to help her. So it's not a lost cause. So, who is this potential diva? And at first, I kind of shied away from this topic because I thought when people hear this, they'll think about the little, quiet, mousy housewife. And yes, she could potentially be that diva, but it could be some other people that you're not thinking about as well. It could be that work at home mom, that entrepreneur who's really got it all together on the outside, making the money, paying the bills, keeping the house together, managing the kids. But inside, she could be feeling some of those things I just described. Or it could be a professional woman who works outside the home. It could be a doctor, could be a teacher, a lawyer, a CEO. It could be somebody you know. It could be your mom, your sister, your best friend, your pastor, or maybe it could even be you. So, why is this diva so hard to recognize? Because we are masters of deception, masters of hiding behind masks. For example, if somebody asks you how you're doing, no matter how you're feeling, you're most likely going to say, "Oh, I'm fine," and keep moving. And like I said, a lot of women sometimes are naturally givers, and we're just trained that way. And sometimes, depending on how old you are, those of us who are over 50, 60, beyond, maybe you grew up hearing things like sugar and spice and everything nice. That's what little girls are made of. And gender roles were really, really strictly defined back then, not so much today. We grew up playing house with the dolls, the play kitchen, washing dishes, laundry, imitating all the stuff we saw at home, good, bad, or indifferent. We did learn from the people we watched at home. Some of us, unfortunately, may have been taught submission in church in a bad way. Not that submission itself is bad, but the way it was presented might have taught us that it's not okay to speak up. Um, as a teacher, I've become more and more aware of this. We tend to sometimes reward students for sitting quietly in class. So that student, that young lady, could be just sitting in class quiet, and she gets praised as being a good student, even though she may not understand anything that's going on in class. So that's something I'm trying to be more aware of as an educator, to not just look for the student that's sitting quietly, but to see, interact and see who's really paying attention, who's got it going on, who has questions. Because I know as a student, I would know the answer, but I would never raise my hand to volunteer. If the teacher called on me, I'd answer, but for some reason, I would never volunteer and raise my hand. So that's something I have to be aware of. Maybe even, and this one might surprise you, that person we're talking about that's giving, doing for everybody else, she could be ego tripping, spiritually high minded and snobby, thinking, yes, I'm better than everybody else because I'm helping so many people. Her identity might be linked to helping so many people, and she might not know what else to do. So, training, yeah, is one of the things that makes the people the way they are. The other thing is trauma, childhood trauma, or even adult trauma. And it may be trauma that you remember, or it may be suppressed. Like you may remember being verbally abused, physically abused, or even sexually abused as a child, as a teen. But sometimes our brains are so powerful that they block out some of those hurtful, painful memories to protect you. So you may have experienced some trauma and your brain may have blocked it out. So that's something you might want to investigate a little bit further. Um, or maybe in past experiences, you tried to assert yourself and you got shut down. Maybe you tried to say something to your dad or to someone you were in another relationship with and they shut you down. And so you just decided, that's it. I'm not going to try anymore. It's pointless. I don't like the way that made me feel. And so you just see future attempts at assertiveness as pointless. And you also might be afraid of being labeled because, unfortunately, especially in the workplace and sometimes in the home, men who are aggressive, boys who are aggressive, or rewarded. High five. Good job. But females who are assertive sometimes get a not so nice label. So that's something we have to be aware of. So, how do we recognize this diva? If it might be you or someone else that you know. Here's some things to think about. Do you tend to say yes to things out of a sense of obligation or guilt? Especially, or even though you may not have the time to do whatever's asked of you, you may not have the skill or the resources to make it happen, but you find yourself saying yes anyway because you think you have to. Or do you say yes because even if you have to postpone or cancel something you were really looking forward to, you go ahead and say yes to the other person and you make their event, their request happen, and yours just goes by the wayside? Is that you? Is that someone you know? Or what about this one? And I was really, really bad about this one. Do you play out worst case scenarios in your head? Conversations, wondering what if. And I have had many conversations in my brain, whole conversations. Well, what if I say this? Then they might say that. Then I might say this. And that might make me feel this way. And I build up this whole scenario in my head to the point that I just didn't say anything at all. And then days, weeks, months, however longer later on, when I brought the topic up to the person, it didn't go nearly as bad as what I had made up in my head. So, do you sometimes make up worst case scenarios in your head when you're facing a challenge or a conflict? Diva could be you. What about this one? That gut feeling. You have no inner peace about something. Somebody asks you to do something and you just get that gut check that, I don't know, but you end up saying yes anyway, and you don't say anything. You don't confront the person. So you have no peace and you're stressed out from holding it all in. Could that be you or someone you know? What about this question? Is the real you tired of acting okay? Like I said before, we're masters of disguise. People ask you how you doing, and no matter what, we tend to say, I'm fine. and keep going. We wear the mask, like the poem Paul Lawrence Dunbar. We wear the mask. We hide behind the smile, no matter what we're going through. So is that you? And I think about that show, To Tell the Truth, with Anthony Anderson and Mama Doris. I love watching that show. But on To Tell the Truth, you have like 3 contestants up there, and they read the scenario of the person's life and what they've done. And then the guests spend a few moments asking each contestant questions, trying to figure out which one is telling the truth. And at the end, the person who's telling the truth stands up, of course. And it's a fun game. But my question is, are you so busy living someone else's story that maybe you don't even know what you want or what you like anymore because you've been catering to other people for so long? When was the last time you did something nice for you just because? That's something to think about. Like I said, as moms, we're givers. Some of us are natural givers. We enjoy giving, and there's nothing wrong with giving. There is nothing wrong with serving. I love it, but you got to know when and where to draw the line. So the question is, this person I've talked about today, this diva who does so much for other people, doesn't take enough time for herself, who may be feeling one or all 4 of these things: depressed, insecure, vulnerable, afraid. Is there hope for the diva to change? And the answer is absolutely yes. It's going to take a little work. You may have to unlearn some things. You know, we talked about training and trauma, how those things affect how you relate to other people. So you may have to unlearn some old things that you learned and learn some new things to replace them. And you may need to release some people from your inner circle. Everybody in your inner circle, unfortunately, does not mean you the best. So you got to evaluate when you're with people, when you're interacting with people, how does it make you feel? So if you're interested in exploring some of these topics we talked about today, please go to beperfectlyu.com. That's beperfectlyu.com. And there's several links on there. You can read my bio, learn some more about me. You can join our Perfectly You tribe on Facebook. And there's some other links available there. And also, I got a checklist on there for you to evaluate. There's like 10 questions you can go through to evaluate yourself, or maybe if you have a friend you think might be on this diva scale somewhere, you can share with them. But yes, it's called the Perfectly Me Checklist, and it's got 10 questions you can ask yourself. And one of the questions on there I know is there anything I did yesterday that was out of character for me? If so, why did I do it? And here's the kicker: how did it make me feel? If you don't get through any of the other questions, that question right there will give you some insight and some clarity into why you do what you do. So again, you can go to bit.ly/check me daily. That's bit.ly/check me daily. To get your Perfectly Me checklist, go through those questions. If you'd like to chat about those questions, come on into the Perfectly You tribe, or click the link that says need to know more, and you can ask a question. We can discuss some of these. And so my goal is that we can help you turn from this negative diva we talked about today into a positive one. We're going to take you from depressed, insecure, vulnerable, and afraid to being dynamic, inspired, vibrant, and adventurous. Because as you get to know more about yourself and more things that you like to do, you might be adventurous and want to try some new things that you never even thought you would try before. So I hope you enjoyed this little chat, and I look forward to seeing you on the inside.